voice, the heart, the soul of the Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital. Always there for you. Call 949-6066.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the Record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the Record.
For the Record. For the Record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Ort Connor.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, O land of soft, fresh breezes and verdant trees. So fair. Today's the 8th of August, 2022, right here in the beautiful Cayman Islands. We hope and we trust that everyone had a restful, peaceful, enjoyable weekend. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, again, we urge you to please be extremely cautious. Whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or operating any type of motorized vehicle, please observe the rules of the road. Remember, the life you save may just be your own. We're already hearing early this morning of another road fatality. And, of course, once Radio Cayman's news department receives more information in relation to that, they will be passing that on to you during our news segments as well. For those of you who are celebrating a birthday today, we want to wish you a happy birthday, or if you celebrated one over the past few days, a belated happy birthday as well. Also want to remind you that this segment of For the Record, the birthday shout-out brought to you by life insurance agents Michael Webster and Randall Lawson from Cayman Insurance Center, and they remind you not to take chances with your family's future. So we encourage you to send us WhatsApp messages, email, and we will give you those details later on. We do have guests in the studio this morning, so what we will do at some point in time, I'll extend the birthday shout-outs to later, and whenever we get an opportunity, if you send that information into us, we will mention the person who's celebrating a birthday today as well. For those of you who have lost loved ones, again, we want to express our sincere condolences to you. We hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these extremely challenging times, and that the memories of your loved ones will be a blessing to you as well. Those of you who are ill and are either here or at a medical facility overseas, we wish you a speedy recovery as well. So, folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, wherever that may be. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Ort Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. During that period, our phone lines are open. Beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson waiting to take your calls. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number, 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Email us at fortherecord, one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. WhatsApp us 925-3261, where you can send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. Folks, this morning it is my pleasure to have a distinguished panel of guests in the studio with me this morning, and we will start with Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw, who is the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit at the Cayman Islands government. Also with us, the Financial Secretary, the Honorable Kenneth Jefferson. Almost forgot, that's been so long I haven't spoken to him. And none other than Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance, and other ministries as well, the Honorable Chris Saunders. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C., and it's great to be here. I'm going to declare from right now, of all the radio shows in Cayman, this one is actually my favorite. And that may vex some people, but I'm just going to state it as it is. And as I listened to your intro this morning, I'm still impressed that you can go through such a long intro, literally from memory, and I'm really impressed with that.
Thank you.
Want to thank also Financial Secretary and Chief Officer of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Mr. Ken Jefferson, for joining me this morning, and also the Director for the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Laidlow. First of all, OC, I'll just start out by thanking these gentlemen. First, Mr. Jefferson, for the team that he has assembled as Chief Officer in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, and then also for Mr. Laidlow for the team that he has also assembled and managed in terms of getting this. I mean, the report here, you have a copy,
yes, took
over, I think, 432 people, literally, to put together. And when you go back to the census, in last October when we were doing the census, it was still a different kind of COVID environment. So more importantly, the thousands of people who welcomed the census workers into their homes and provided the data it is immeasurable in terms of what it is that they are giving us. And I really want to thank everyone because they also too recognize the importance of the census. Unlike many countries that have a tax structure, and you can get a lot of information from how people file taxes and so forth, every year and so forth, we don't have that. So we literally have to rely on the census. And one of the things I really want to kind of touch on, early on before we get into the census, is if you remember last year when this government came in and we were looking at the vaccination drive, there was some argument over the population count. Now, ESO at that time had provided the government with pretty much, while they had an average range, they did give us a range that the population could have been either here or there, as high as, the average was 66, but as high as 71,000. And we chose to go with the 71,000. And we took that decision based on reports that we were getting from the retailers in terms of the volume of business that they were doing. We looked at the traffic and everything else. And we knew within ourselves, we think it would be better to go on the higher side of ESO's range. And sure enough, by census date rolled around, the population was 71,000. I think they had like 71,005. And we ended up with a population of 71,105. So to have been that close to it. Now, I bring it up just to remind also certain people in opposition, I won't say Usar Alid, who basically had said to us that if the population was as high as the number that we were using, because the government didn't get a lot of criticism for it. And I really want to give the Premier and my colleagues credit for at least standing firm, because, when I went and I presented saying, guys, this is the number I think we should be comfortable with, they stood with me in that regard, and, despite the, certain criticism from certain quarters. So I really want to highlight the importance of what ESO does in terms of that, because the number that they gave us was the number that was in the higher range. And again, you can only estimate based on certain things and so forth, but I'm glad to see at least it literally was spot on in that regard.
Right in the ballpark.
And then two, also my colleagues, and the Premier for at least standing with me saying, you know what, this is the number we're going to use just to be on the safe side. Just to remind people that when it comes on to the safety and the security of our people, this is something that we're not afraid to make our decisions with. So I really want to thank the ESO team again for the work that they have done, because it was their estimate that we use in that regard.
Certainly.
So.
Okay. We have about 2 minutes before we go to the commercial break. Ms. Susan, if you're ready for the commercial break, we can take it now. And then this way we don't have to interrupt you until we go to the 8 o'clock news. Folks, please stay tuned. The conversation with the Honorable Chris Saunders, Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance. Also with us, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, Cayman Islands Government, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Historical Vignette Series, brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects. The Cayman Islands, He hath founded it upon the seas.
Following emancipation, not only did the population of unsettled districts see a population increase, but so too did the Bay Islands of Honduras, which saw the immigration of hundreds of Caymanians. The Bay Islands offered much in the way of economic opportunities, with fertile, uncultivated lands, prime fishing and turtling, as well as trade opportunities with the local population. As is the case with most immigration initiatives, not all was picture perfect, and Caymanian migrants faced hostilities with the Black Caribs as well as the Honduran Spaniards, along with facing tropical disease, racial conflict, and not to mention having to combat foreign mosquitoes.
Radio Cayman's Historical Vignettes was brought to you by Rotary Central. For more than 110 years, Rotary members have used their passion, energy, and intelligence to take action on sustainable projects.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vant Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vant Motors, Walkers Road.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
JN Money, money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use your money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank? Yeah. Pay your bills quick? Yeah. Low fees, you know what it? Yeah. JN Money, we are pick? Yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Hi, I'm remodeling our bathroom. I have a few questions.
Sure.
What are some ideas to make my bathroom feel larger? How do I know if I'm picking the right vanity? How do I choose a new toilet or a new countertop? Also, the lighting is terrible. Can I put a window or a skylight? And do I really need an exhaust fan?
You've come to the right place. At Brand Source, we custom design kitchen and baths, and our talented design team can help answer your questions. Whether you're looking for a modern, functional family bathroom or a luxurious personal retreat, we'll help create that beautiful space that makes your home yours. And if you're in a rush for a new look and have a limited budget, our ready-to-install bathroom vanities, built with solid wood and countertops of the finest materials, are a quick and easy remodeling solution.
For the very best in custom-designed kitchens and baths, visit Brand Source Home Gallery on Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, Cayman's Kitchen and Bath Center.
Hi, I'm life insurance agent Michael Webster.
And I am Randy Lawson from Cayman Insurance Center.
Proud sponsors of the birthday shoutouts on For the Record.
Whether you're another year older or just a year wiser,
making sure your family is protected is a pretty wise choice. I'm Michael Webster at 925-5433.
And I am Randy Lawson at 322-2145. Give us a call today to find out how you can better secure your family's future.
Cayman Insurance Center, protecting you and your family so you can take back your future.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the Record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, the Director of the Economics and Statistics Unit, the Financial Secretary, and Honorable Chris Saunders, Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance. Deputy Premier, back over to you, sir.
Good morning again, OC, and morning again to your listeners. And I want to thank Chief Officer Jefferson and Director Laidlow for being here also this morning. One of the things that I just want to kind of touch on is that, to give the team credit, when the government changed, and of course they already started the process of starting the census, the director, to his credit, changed some of the questions, recognizing that, government coming in, we wanted to be looking at more qualitative measures, like the Human Development Index. And so some of the questions were adjusted, and even now, some of the stuff, the information that they have provided us, though, have also been adjusted to reflect that. Because one of the things that we want is, right now, if you go to look at Cayman Human Development Index score, they will literally link us with that of the UK. And we want to basically have our own score. Now, the data that we collected before in the past did not pretty much allow us to know what we have here plus what is also in the works will actually give us the opportunity to start collecting our own score. One of the things that we want to focus on the quality of life for our people. And the other things that my colleagues and I have been discussing since taking office is that when we look at what it is ultimately we want to measure ourselves again, the UN has this thing on gross national happiness was started back in 2011 in Bhutan, where they start looking at 6 factors. So for us, it's the qualitative score in terms of where we are, but then this is what it is that we're trying to achieve in terms of our people, and then we have that real, honest, adult conversation to say, are we pretty much on par with that? Mm-hmm. So you take something, for example, one of the questions that they would ask in terms of, on the HDI, do you have access to knowledge? And one of the things that they look at is not just how much years of schooling you have, not just the student-teacher ratio, nor the literacy rate, but they also look at how many years of schooling could you expect. So when you look at our strategic policy statement and you see the government commitment towards making ICCI free and UCCI free, it's about increasing that expected years of schooling. So now, if we can get those institutions free, and hopefully as finances improve, we'll start with definitely UCCI first, and then ultimately with ICCI, that also is a master's program. You have now automatically added on that it is reasonable for a person to say, up to a bachelor's degree, you can, at least an associate, you should be expected to have, or a bachelor's or to a master's. So it moves those scores along. And one of the things I think that we do have the opportunity, and as a small island, to actually have one of the highest expected years of schooling worldwide. Globally from that standpoint, if we can get that commitment through. And I think that would say something about us. And that's one of the reasons why education itself is broad outcome number one in terms of our strategic policy statement. Of course, followed by healthcare, because at the end of the day, you need to have a healthy and educated population to meet the needs of the country. So it is that kind of thinking in terms of where we're going. Because when you do now get into the gross national happiness, that is really where the conversation turns where you have to have that hard decision. I mean, they look at 6 factors in terms of gross national happiness, and they're not weighted equally. So you look at, for example, social support. Do you have someone to count on? We have to ask ourselves genuinely, if people are in need. I mean, yes, we have NAU, yes, we have the Department of Children and Family Services, but do we genuinely have a structure in place that someone can go to sleep at night and say to themselves, you know what, if an emergency tomorrow, I'll be okay. I mean, yes, the government may step up and do a certain thing, but you still have to go through that process. And that's why when you hear me saying now about, pushing to get changes to the pension law to allow people in certain emergency situations to draw on their pension, it's no use telling somebody that, I got this money for you 25, 30 years down the line if you need something now. So it's important to make sure, because when you look at the definition of health itself, since 1947 by the World Health Organization, it says a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease and infirmity. We have, lots of men of the government, focused on that, the physical side of health. What we have not looked at is the mental and the social side. And when you take something as simple as COVID, I mean, the impact that COVID is going to have on generations to come. I mean, you look at the schooling and everything else. Parents missing graduations. I mean, kids wearing masks at school. I mean, the impact alone of that is all that's felt afterwards. You can go back to Hurricane Ivan. I mean, 04 set quite low. And I remember in 05, people just started just going. And I'm like, that's when you start seeing the impact or the effects of these things. So it is that mental and social well-being that we need to make sure. And looking at our social support. This came on my radar, I remember, several years back. There was an article in the Atlantic Journal that says, 40% of Americans or something like that, if they had a $400 emergency, could not find it. We're talking about almost like literally 100 million people. And you're like, wow, one of the richest countries on earth. And it's the same thing here in Cayman too, where we have abundant resources, but we have a lot of people are struggling. So it makes no use that the economy is doing well or the government finances is doing well, but the people who ultimately own it isn't doing well. And that's the reason why we want to focus more on quality of life.
Okay. So if I could ask, so while international organizations like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank will focus more on GDP, the HDI part of it, the focus that focus is done more by local governments and other organizations that are have more of a social focus. Is that the case?
The main thing about it really, OC, is really about quality of life. I mean, for us, ultimately, it's about working towards an equitable, inclusive, balanced form of economic growth that focuses on well-being, happiness, and sustainable development. That's ultimately what it comes down to us is. But it still come back to quality of life. I mean, like I said, we have seen massive government surpluses. We have heard the economy doing well. But when you go and you poll your people, who should be the ultimate beneficiaries, you don't get the same connection. So there's clearly a disconnect. I see what has made it a little bit more challenging is that in the history of human civilization, there are 2 events that have happened, that is happening now, that has never happened before in the history of human civilization. One, this is the first time ever 4 generations are working together. An 18-year-old will literally be working alongside an 81-year-old. Never before has that happened. Because, again, people are living longer also compared to what it was up to 100 years ago. And then the second issue, partly again also because of the first, but this is the first time because of all the technological changes that the knowledge transfer that used to go from the elder to the young person, the knowledge transfer is also going on from the younger person to the elder. So as a result, the normal leadership gap within any community used to be pretty much the elders that would sit around and they'll pass on the knowledge. Now, as a result, the leadership, global leadership has actually moved down literally 1 generation. So before it used to be like people in their late 50s, early 60s. Now you're seeing across the world, people in their 40s, young 40s, even early 50s are pretty much with leadership. So you have a generation that was never technically groomed, but because they have become the gap between the 20-odd-year-old and those are living longer, so it has kind of pushed down. So now for us, my generation, which is more the leadership generation, we have to recognize that there's a serious disconnect. Is that one, you have the young people feeling disenfranchised as if though this is not for them. But then you also have the older folks feeling unappreciated. So for us now, we have to sit down and have the real hard conversations like, okay, what are we doing wrong? The metrics seems to be saying, the traditional metrics seem to be saying one thing. But when you do speak to the people, there's that disconnect. And that's when we say, you know what, guys, let's step back from the traditional metrics. Let us start focusing on the quality of life metrics. Let us start looking at these things. So let us see where our scores are on the HDI. But then let us sit back now and have the hard conversation is, these are the 6 questions that the UN, and they've gone out and put these together. Let us answer these 6 questions honestly. And let us see no. And like I said, it's, politics dictate that you find a good way of always selling something. And one thing I give Premier credit for, when we started from very early, the one thing he said, guys, any decision that we make, please make sure it's a decision that can stand 10 years from now. And I'm like, man, this man went past 2 terms. I mean, this man has gone completely past his 8 years max that he can serve as Premier into the next. But again, this is the kind of decisions that we need to make. And luckily for us now, we have a mature citizen a mature citizen and intelligent enough citizen that can ask themselves the question, wait a minute, is this decision in the best long term? They no longer want to see decisions that are going to last to the next election. So that has helped us a lot. I mean, and I've been blessed with, I would probably say of all the 19 constituents, the best one in terms of people wanting the long-term thinking, because they've already seen the effects of the short-term thinking. We're just trying to get to the next election and have something to run on. So that for us is important. So for this government, it is really about the quality of life. And again, you're looking at the gross national happiness. The second rated issue on it is opportunities. And you have heard myself and my colleagues say, while we cannot, guarantee equal outcome, what we want to push for is equal opportunity.
Okay, folks, you've heard it here on For the Record. Honorable Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, Honorable Chris Saunders, also in the studio with me, the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw. I said Laidlaw earlier, but it's Laidlaw. Folks, please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time now by Foster's is 7:59.
All right, class, pay attention. School is back in session, and it's time to get back to school ready with Foster's.
Foster's is embracing school spirit with all the essentials like backpacks, stationery, lunch kits, and more.
And online, treat yourself to our useful back-to-school lunch ideas at livewell.fosters.ky to turn fresh and healthy into full and focused.
And any parents hoping to spend more time at home, there's always fresh delivery from Foster's Go.
Think you got all of that? We'll test you on it later.
Get ready for a great fresh start with Foster's.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com.
For today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Karsley Fuller. Investigations are underway this morning after a deadly crash in central Georgetown. The 911 call came in shortly after 3:30 a.m. of a single vehicle collision with multiple injuries at the junction of Eastern Avenue and Shedden Road. Emergency services attended the scene. An RCIPS spokesperson has confirmed it was a fatal crash and says more information will be released soon. This will be Cayman's 12th road death of the year. Stay with us as we follow this developing story. Police this weekend formally released the name of the 77-year-old woman who was killed in a car crash on July 31st on South Church Street. Mrs. Margaret Rose Garcia of Bawdentown died when a white Kia Sportage she was in with 3 other people crashed into a tree just before 12:30 a.m. that morning. 2 other people were also hurt in that crash, but they were released from the hospital. The Traffic and Roads Policing Unit and investigators are encouraging anyone with information regarding that collision to call 649-6254. In other police and fire news, crews were sent to Ellery Marin Drive this morning to deal with a vehicle fire. 911 tells Radio Cayman the blaze was called in at around 3:30 a.m. Dramatic video posted online shows a truck fully engulfed. No injuries were reported. And in other news, the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism says it is strengthening its diversity marketing efforts. Radio Cayman's April Cummings has more.
DOT this weekend announced its participation in the 2022 National Association of Black Journalists and the National Association of Hispanic Journalists conventions in Las Vegas. Thousands of the U.S.'s top journalists, media execs, educators, PR professionals, and students gathered in Las Vegas. Tourism Director Mrs. Rosa Harris says DOT's plan was to transform the founders' reception into a lively celebration of Caymanian culture. Cayman also hosted a panel discussion focused on building bridges between the islands and diverse communities. April Cummings, Radio Cayman News.
In regional news, Colombia's first leftist president was sworn into office Sunday, promising to fight inequality and bring peace to a country long haunted by bloody feuds between the government, drug traffickers, and rebel groups. Gustavo Petro, the former member of Colombia's M19 guerrilla group, won the presidential election in June by beating conservative parties that offered moderate changes to the market-friendly economy, but failed to connect with voters frustrated by rising poverty and violence against human rights leaders and environmental groups in rural areas. On Sunday, he said Colombia was getting a, quote, second chance to tackle violence and poverty, and promised that his government would implement economic policies that seek to end long-standing inequalities and ensure solidarity with the nation's most vulnerable. Now with a check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. Gaza's only power plant has been able to start generating electricity again after a ceasefire deal between Israel and Islamic Jihad militants. Border crossings have reopened and crucial fuel deliveries have resumed. Hospitals had warned that they were struggling to cope. A new report suggests Russia is struggling to replenish its stocks of weapons because of its reliance on high-tech components made in the West. Defence researchers in Britain from the Royal United Services Institute say Moscow's invasion of Ukraine has exhausted its supplies. The former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev has marked the anniversary of Russia's war with Georgia by defending Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. He said the conflict in Georgia in 2008, the enlargement of NATO and the war in Ukraine were part of an attempt by the US and its allies to destroy Russia. Igor Tuleya, a Polish judge who was suspended after criticising the government's overhaul of the courts, has been refused permission to return to work. The European Commission says Poland must reinstate judges disciplined under reforms to the courts before it releases billions of dollars in recovery and resilience funds. Hungary has fined one of Europe's biggest airlines, Ryanair, in a dispute over who should pay an extra tax on profits imposed by Budapest. Ryanair had added an extra $10 tariff to each ticket in response to a windfall tax on airlines. BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy. Save time and order your prescription refills online at value-medpharmacy.com. VALU-medpharmacy.com. Did you know that ValueMed Pharmacy has a free online prescription service? Managing your health and medical requirements has never been easier with ValueMed. Simply visit value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com and click the Refill Prescriptions tab on our website. Fill in the information for new prescriptions or refills and choose your preferred pickup location. ValueMed on Walkers Road or Town. Then bring in your original prescription from your doctor when picking up. There's no need to stand in line and wait for your prescription. Save time and pick up prescriptions at your convenience by visiting value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
At Kirk's Home Center, we can make your life much better. We got it all together. We got a great deal in store for you. From cookware to stereos, from power tools to plumbing supplies. Yeah, we got the best goods with the best price.
Breitling watches are defined by quality, innovation, and style, and you have the chance to win one in August during Kirk Freeport's 50th anniversary sweepstakes. Each month, lucky shoppers have the chance to win a piece of jewelry or a watch from luxury brands. Every purchase of $100 at any Kirk Freeport store gains you entry into the monthly drawing, so stop in today. Next up, September's prize is the Chopard Happy Dreams bracelet. View terms and conditions on KirkFreeport.com.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcade, where people come first.
Head east on Cove Road. Sharp left on Church Street. Sharper left. No, your other left. Did I say left? Nope, you missed it. Okay, I'm lost.
With money-saving bundling options for home and motor, we're like a GPS that doesn't steer you wrong. CG Britcade. Good like that.
Let's stop and ask for directions.
Pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 87 degrees. Relative humidity is 79%. The barometric pressure, 29.96 inches and rising. The wind is out of the east at 10 knots. Overnight low temperature was 82 degrees. Synopsis indicate an increase in cloudiness and showers expected tonight as a tropical wave currently extending east of Jamaica moves over the Cayman area. Moderate winds and seas are also expected over the next 24 hours. Radar images show isolated showers in and around the Cayman area moving west. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies with a 30% chance of afternoon showers and possible thunder. Temperatures will rise to the low 90s with a heat index of 105 degrees Fahrenheit. It's going to be a hot day. Winds will be east to northeast at 10 to 15 knots and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Tonight, pretty much the same, partly cloudy to cloudy skies with a 40% chance of showers and possible thunder, and temperatures will dip to the mid-70s tonight. Winds will be east to northeast at 5 to 10 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. Low tide will be this afternoon at 12:43, high tide tonight at 7:43. The sun will set this evening at 6:56 and will rise tomorrow morning at 5 minutes after 6. And the outlook is calling for similar weather conditions through Wednesday morning, with a decrease in cloudiness and showers expected thereafter as a tropical wave moves west of the Cayman area.
The 8:12 a.m. weather report brought to you by CG Britcade, where people come first.
Good morning, everyone. Hello? Hello? Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, I see we have just about everyone, and of course Tom drops off, as per usual. Let's just wait a minute here. He always comes right back, and we're almost ready, and... oh, whoever's dog that is, please go on mute. Why won't it let me share my screen? Okay, looks like we're ready to start.
We're like a video conference with no technical issues. CG Britcade. Good like that.
During these unprecedented times, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Cayman Strong series. The Cayman Strong series is brought to you by OnCourse Cayman. Visit oncourse.ky to view a full list of wellness services and their qualified team. OnCourse Cayman, health, wellness, and happiness.
Achieving your goals is a very rewarding feeling, but at times can feel very frustrating, especially if and when we miss our target. As you approach your goals in life, set yourself up for success.
When setting goals, adjust as necessary. When goal setting, anticipate ups and downs. Often it will be easier to stick to some goals than others, so allow yourself to have some flexibility in your approach and assessment. Continue to dream and adjust the end game to maintain interest and motivation. Ask yourself, is this really my goal? If it is a goal imposed by others, then consider what may be in it for you. Why would you do this? There is always the option not to do it. Figure out why you're doing it and then go for it.
Change your thinking and change your life.
During these unprecedented times, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the Cayman Strong series. The Cayman Strong series is brought to you by OnCourse Cayman. Visit oncourse.ky to view a full list of wellness services and their qualified team. OnCourse Cayman, health, wellness, and happiness.
These days, feelings of loneliness, anxiety, stress, and depression can be overwhelming. Just know you are not alone. OnCourse Cayman offers private mental health services for children, teens, adults, and groups. Visit oncourse.ky to view a full list of wellness services and their qualified team. OnCourse Cayman, health, wellness, and happiness.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
Good morning. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads. Just to remind you, a portion of Eastern Avenue is closed as police continue their investigations. Eastbound traffic on Cool Road is moving on pretty good. Westbound traffic on Cool Road is busy. Traffic is busy coming off of Bobby Thompson Way as well as off of Agnes Way. Slight delays expected. As we look to downtown Georgetown and Edward Street, traffic is flowing pretty good. And on Shedden Road, moderate flow of traffic in both directions. Light traffic on Owen Roberts Drive and light to moderate traffic flow coming from the West Bay 4-way stop. And Godfrey Nixon Way, traffic is moving on moderately, heading towards the traffic lights. And eastbound traffic along Shamrock Road between Savannah Avenue and Lancelot Drive is being diverted onto Greenwell Street from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m. until August 12th, so bear that in mind. That's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12 o'clock. We'll give you another traffic report.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
The traffic report is brought to you by Subway. Planning a meeting, event, or office celebration? Visit subway.ky to place your catering order today.
From food to construction materials to office supplies, chances are a truck brought it to you. Superior Auto honors the value that the trucking community brings to these islands. Reliable, quality-trained technicians who value your time and aim to get your trucks back in service so you can be continued to be of service to your customers. Specializing in complete Isuzu, Hino, and other models of delivery box trucks and its repairs, including computer diagnostics, mechanical, and body repair. Superior Auto, 525-9571 or 949-9570. Keep on trucking with Superior Auto.
Since 1993, Rotary Central has worked diligently each year to provide quality bus shelters to our community. A traveling convenience to our school children, the elderly, young people going to work, guest workers, and visitors using the public bus. We, Rotary Central, help you, our advertisers, make it happen. Your marketing dollar travels a far way. Positioning your message, your product, your services, your presence in over 83 bus shelters. Every dollar you spend, every advert you place helps to build another bus shelter, providing modest comfort for Cayman travelers. Reserve space now on the only billboard medium in the Cayman Islands. Email rotaryshelters@gmail.com. rotaryshelters@gmail.com. The Bus Shelters, a partner in community convenience. Another inspiration program by Rotary Central Cayman Islands.
West Bay, home to Barkas National Park, the touristy flair, a family community, a political powerhouse. From sports enthusiasts to car aficionados, affection for silver thatch rope. No matter how far you may venture, West Bay will always be where the heart is. home will always be in West Bay. West Bay Pharmacy, caring for your home and your family. West Bay Pharmacy in Centennial Towers. Convenient, quality care is just around the corner.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're talking about the 2020 census results. In the studio with me, Honorable Chris Saunders, Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw. Back over to you, Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Usi, and welcome back to all your listening public. I will ask the Financial Secretary to just briefly go through some of the highlights of the census, the 2021 census results.
Sure.
FS.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Connor, it's good to be back in the studio after quite some time.
Yes.
Being away from the studio with you.
Don't blame it on COVID.
No, with you. We were here on Friday.
Yes.
With Sterling Dwayne on the Talk Today show. I wanted just to give some basics because although the Deputy Premier and the Premier gave a press briefing on the census in late July, and we were here again last week Friday with Sterling Dwayne on his show, there may be members of the public that are listening and hadn't heard any of those previous programs and did not receive any previous information on it. So just wanted to give them the basics. And I'll start by saying that we want to say, a tremendous thank you to the population, the public who allowed the enumerators to come into their homes at a time of COVID. And so that must have been a tremendous, perhaps apprehension and fear for them to let strangers into your home to ask questions, and for could easily have been 20 minutes to half an hour. So we want to say a tremendous thank you to the almost 30,000 households that took part in the census. And so that's the first piece of sort of factual information. The precise number was estimated to be like 29,699 households. So I've just rounded that off to say approximately 30,000. So a tremendous thank you to them for allowing the census to actually give us a tremendous document, a 361-page document. It sounds daunting, but it's broken down into sections which are quite manageable. And I would encourage members of the public to get the document from eso.ky, www.eso.ky, and they can select the particular sections that they want to engage in. So there's a section on education, there's a section on disability, there's a section on healthcare related, the usual employment data. There is obviously the population demographics that I'm going to just touch on briefly now. So there's something in it for everyone, and it's quite manageable despite the fact that the document is fairly large. So another initial point I wanted to make as well is that the census, the questions that the census asked, the answers to those was based on what was the position as of the 10th of October 2021. How old were you on that date, for example? Were you employed on that date, for example? So the reference was to around the 10th of October 2021. And although that process of getting those answers carried on until January 2022, the reference point was the 10th of October. So that's another factual bit I wanted to let the public know. And also to say, too, that the basic question of who are included in the population number, it was on a fairly simple criteria of as of the 10th of October, were you on island, in the Cayman Islands? Would you have students? Perhaps is a very good example of a slight exception to that, in that were you on island intending to be here for at least 6 months? And that, so we therefore include persons on work permit holders were also included in the population number. Students who happened to be abroad were also included because they would ordinarily be in the Cayman Islands for certainly more than 6 months. So students was included in the population number, but a genuine tourist who came here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks was not included in the population. So when we went around, the enumerators went around to the districts, and they had their tablets in front of them. They were asking their questions, and they went to their almost 30,000 households. That process itself gave rise to a population of 68,811. But there were a few households, quite a few households, where they did not cooperate. They couldn't get answers from them, and we had to estimate based on other information that we actually collected, where there were 963 households that we didn't sit in their places and get an actual live person chatting to us. 963 of those. So we had to actually estimate the number of persons in those households, but the estimate was based on actual data from those that we did visit. So the average number of persons in households was around 2.4 persons per household. So when we did apply that 2.4 average to the 963, we got then what is referred to as a non-institutional population number, meaning you were not in an institution, you were not in prison, you were not obviously in hospital, you were not in a retirement home. So it's the lion's share of the population is referred to as the non-institutional population. That number then became 71,105 persons. And then when we added the persons in prison, unfortunately, in the retirement homes, then we got, that estimate was 327. So the grand total of the population estimate as of October was 71,432 persons. That's our final number. So if you want to just round that off, because it's difficult to remember the 32, you can call it 71,400 was the population estimate. So that's some of the very, very basics. So we talked about the date, the number of households participating, almost 30,000, and the population estimate of 71,432. But those in homes, in condos, and apartments was 71,105. So I would encourage the public to get this document and to look at it and look at the sections that interest them, because it does have a wealth of information. And I'd end by just giving this last bit of information. If we look at the population that are 5 years and older, that's approximately 65,000 persons. And when we look at the medically diagnosed illnesses of that age, 5 and older, there are three top illnesses that were diagnosed. Diabetes was, so of the 65,000, those diagnosed with illnesses was 8,400. But of that 8,400, the top three illnesses were diabetes, almost 3,000 persons, 2,995. The next biggest, most prevalent illness was arthritis, 1,439, and cataracts was the third, 1,305. Those are the illnesses, and as the director said last week, those illnesses translate into disabilities as well. So we go to another section of the document, we find detail about persons and their disabilities that they suffer. There were approximately 2,400 persons that said they had difficulty seeing, and that was a top disability, which corresponds with the top illness of diabetes being diagnosed as well. So there's a direct, quite natural and expected correlation between the illness and the disability.
Was that broken down into age group as well, or were you able to break that down into age group?
And
male and female.
And when you do look at it, and you look at I think we're marking by memory, females jumped out a little bit more And then between Cayman and non-Cayman, of course, Cayman and jump out more. And that's one of the things that we touched on in terms of lifestyle. Yeah. Because when you do look at some of the illnesses, you know, and again, this is why the Minister of Health is actually more pushing on the wellness side. And even right now in government, one of the things that we're looking at is start within our own civil service is actually to put in an executive medical check, literally on just about over 4,000 civil servants. I mean, yes, it may cost us, a couple of $1 million, well, just to get that, done. But if we can start that process now, for those who have never had one before, and you start looking at certain markers, because again, you see diabetes out there being one, and speaking from my own personal experience, where at one point I was pre-diabetic and I literally had to go to lose like 50 pounds because I made up my mind I did not want to become diabetic. You know what I mean? While I may have had a medical health check that made me realize that I was pre-diabetic, I do recognize that we also need to get the same thing, and we're hoping that if government take this initiative, that other private sector will follow suit and also do the same thing in terms of starting that. So that's one of the reasons why we're pushing wellness as a big thing. As old people say, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. And when you have people living longer, it's important for them to actually be living healthier. So that's why we want to start pushing wellness a lot, to start looking at many of these things, and people can start seeing certain health markers from now and start making adjustments in their life before it becomes an emergency.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if that's what we're going to do, is we're going to take a commercial break, and then we will have you continue providing our listening and viewing audience with some of those numbers as well. Folks, don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice-cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross now at Vampt Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vampt Motors, Walkers Road.
To celebrate Her Majesty the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, you are invited to plant a tree for the Jubilee. We need you, yes you, to leave your green mark on our Cayman Islands. Perhaps a mango tree, a little guinea, or mahogany. Register your tree and leave your green print at www.gov.ky/National Tree Planting, or follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Plant a tree for the Jubilee. Proudly brought to you by the Cayman Islands Government, Ministry for Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. Let's green Cayman!
System 1 loaded. 1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. For those of you just joining us, we are discussing the Cayman Islands 2021 census. of Population and Housing report, which was published in July of this year. That discussion is taking place with the Honorable Chris Saunders, Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, also with us, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw. Mr. Jefferson, back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Just before we went to the break, we were talking about disabilities and illnesses, and I'll just conclude quickly on that particular point that I wanted to make. We'd made the point about diabetes translating into a disability of persons having difficulty seeing, and that there's almost 3,000 persons that had been diagnosed with diabetes. 2,400 of those said that they had difficulty seeing. Arthritis, we said that the census revealed that 1,439 persons had arthritis, and in terms of disability, we see that translating into the category of difficulty walking, difficulty climbing stairs. Approximately 2,100 persons said that they had difficulty doing that. The cataracts would obviously tie in with the difficulty seeing. There were 1,300 persons that said they had cataracts. And so I make the point again that this is a tremendous resource for members of the public to avail themselves of. It gives tremendous amounts of information on many areas, 12 different sections, and so they can choose which section they're particularly interested in. And just some more basic information again. We're saying that the household population estimate was around 71,105, call it 71,100. And of those, we're not a them and us situation here, but just out of factual statements, of the 71,100, approximately 3,800 were Caymanians, and the remainder 33,000 were non-Caymanians. And so it does have tremendous amounts of information. Those numbers are broken down by district. You can see what the estimate was for West Bay. You can see what the estimate was for Georgetown and so forth. The vast majority of the population reside in Georgetown, for sure. And we can see the split between males and females and how it's changed over the years. And I think the last point I'd end on for now would be if you're a historian. I mean, there's lots of a bit of historical information in the document about the census. The first recorded one was back in 1802, when the population estimate for the islands then was 933 persons. Now we come forward almost over 200 years later to 2021, and the population estimate is, as we heard, just over 71,000 persons. And in the last 100 years, so if you take the census that was actually done in 1921 compared to the one that was done in 2021, 100 years, in that 100 years, the population has grown from an estimated 5,270 in 1921 to the 71,100 last year. So that's in those 100 years, that's a 13.5 times increase in the population in that 100-year span.
Now, is there any sort of international measure that is used that if we compare that with other jurisdictions, what does it say?
I think one of the things we'll see that, and I'm thanking the FS for pointing that out. There have always been many studies done on countries that have been underdeveloped, and one of the things that we have never really done or taken a look at is on countries that have been overdeveloped and at what period of pace. Because I look at my mother, for example. I mean, just looking at her age, the population will probably double 4 times in her lifetime. And no one has ever done this study to say what is the impact on people with such a very quick in terms of rate of development, especially when it does happen so fast. And I think that goes back again when I was saying about reference to my generation now in terms of where the leadership has shifted to. These are the kind of questions that we have asked. I mean, we have to basically answer. For decades, we have always aired the question, who are we developing for? You know what I mean? But at some point, that question is going to need to be answered. No. The very easy answer for us, I can tell everybody as well, for us, obviously, is the Caymanian people. But again, when you go and you speak to the average Caymanian person, they're not feeling as if though that development is for them, then that is really where the conversation has to come in. I think that's one of the things that we would really love to get a kind of grip on, to see the impact of what overdevelopment in a very, I wouldn't say overdevelopment, but development in a very short period of time, very fast, the impact it have had on people. And again, as I say, going back to the definition of health, I mean, from the World Health Organization, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not just the absence of disease and infirmity. It is that mental and social well-being aspect that we want to start focusing on. So while we have looked at the physical side of health, it is that social side now that we need to start looking at. And because it has happened so fast, a lot of people have felt disenfranchised, a lot of people felt left behind and so forth. I can go back at a time when, well, I'm 50 next year, so I'm not in a spring chicken now. You know, banks were quicker to give you 100% financing to buy a car versus a house. Now you fast forward a generation later, a lot of people are saying, wait a minute, why didn't you give me this opportunity to buy a piece of land when car and land were literally selling at the same cost? I mean, at that point, I'm old enough to remember when literally you can buy the car for the price of a piece of land. And this is why when we're looking at the Human Development Index now, and under the income section, there's a part that talk about purchasing power parity. Now, I made reference last Friday not to single out one industry, but we look at something as simple as land valuation or, house valuation. In New York, one of the most expensive markets in California, they're running $400-500 US. And I mean, we're running here anywhere from $1,400 to $1,500 US equivalent for some property valuations. So then the question has got to come up then, oh, is this right? You know what I mean? So while we do expect that there are some things in Cayman that will cost a little bit more, as you start drilling on the international standard, and again, when we're at the Public Accounts Committee meeting and we're looking at off-reg, and the issue came with fuel. I mean, we remember asking one of the guys from one of the major importers, wholesalers, to explain the price along the line, and there was like literally $2.50 of costs that could not be explained, except to say Cayman is a high-cost jurisdiction. I mean, like, well, it is because you just made it high for something as basic as energy. So it's, again, one of the reasons why we want to push in terms of renewables and everything else and kind of start reducing our dependency and stop sending at least over almost $200 million a year overseas. If we can cut that number down to half in the next 5 to 7 years or 10 years, that's $100 million more back within the local economy that can stay in people's pocket. Certainly. So it is that kind of, like I say, thinking. So for us, we need information to make informed decision, but it starts with information.
Certainly. We do have a caller. Let's grab the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning to your panel. Mr. Sanders, I tried to catch you last week, but by the time I called, you were gone. I have a few questions in regards to some of the information that I heard this morning off and on in regards to how many people have arthritis and different types of I don't know if it's called disease or what in their bodies here in the Cayman Islands.
Physical ailments, we can call it.
Yep. Mentally, what is the word?
Physical ailments.
Physical ailments, yes, sir. Thank you. But Mr. Sanders, I would like to just address this to you. I thought they're not probably not the right time, but with the conversation you all was having, I thought it might have fit in. My opinion would not be yours. But I just want to say that I know this individual, and she is sick. She has no job, and she has no insurance. She's been trying to get physical for some time now to get herself, in a working position to get a job. And every way that she turns, she's being rejected. So I want to know where are people that is out there working, and they don't have a job anymore, and they don't have any insurance from the company, and how are they supposed to continue going to a doctor, and all her medication is to be purchased by cash her doctor visit has to be paid for by cash. Majority of the time, it can't happen because there's no cash for medication. And I know this firsthand. This is not something somebody call and tell me. Because when I talk to the lady, it hurts to the core to know her family is from generation to generation Caymanian. So they say, we don't know who's the Caymanian no more. So I'm going to put it in that category. She's like generation to generation Caymanian. And right now she's still healthy to that degree. She can still work, but needs some medical assistance to get back out in the working world. And everywhere she turns, she's getting sick and she's discouraged. And she needs help to get back out in the working world.
Okay, we're going to have the...
I want to respond.
Okay. What we're going to do is take a commercial break so that you will have sufficient time to respond to her.
But in the meantime, sir, can you ask Susan to get the details of the lady who actually needs the health insurance offline? I don't want to discuss that one.
Yes, right.
So during the break to get that so I can deal with that.
Caller, are you still there?
Yes, I'm
okay, so we're going to ask you to... give Miss Susan the details. If you want to stay on the line, we're going to take a commercial break, and then the Premier will respond in general terms. But as far as the details about the person, we want you to give a contact number to Miss Susan so she can then pass that on to the Deputy Premier. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
At Doctors Hospital, we know life happens, and usually when you least expect it. So when unexpected medical issues arise, you need quality care close to home. Located in the heart of Georgetown, our accomplished team of physicians and medical staff treat minor urgent conditions such as migraines, chest and abdominal pain, shortness of breath, burns, broken bones, open wounds, and more. 24 hours, 7 days a week with no appointment necessary. Peace of mind is important when life happens. At Doctors Hospital, we're always here just for you. Need to speak to someone? Call 949-6066.
JN Money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use a money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we are pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Tune in every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. for Radio Cayman's Midday Newscast. Radio Cayman, the People's Station, your trusted official source for the latest news. The 12 p.m. news is proudly brought to you by Health City Cayman Islands. World-class healthcare within your reach.
Are you feeling sick, but don't feel ill enough to go to the doctor? Ask your pharmacist for advice. Here at West Bay Pharmacy, our pharmacists have been trained to offer helpful, easy-to-understand advice on the treatment of everyday minor ailments for yourself and all the family. Anything from headaches, cough and sore throat, to cold sores, our pharmacists will know when medical help is needed and will not hesitate to refer you to your doctor if your symptoms demand it. Like doctors, our pharmacists have a professional code, which means all personal information you give them will be treated in the strictest confidence. Visit us today at West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, we have the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlow, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, Honorable Chris Saunders. Deputy Premier, back over to you. I know you want to respond to the caller, and the personal details, we will get that for you as well.
Yeah. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear of the latest situation, and these are the kind of things that keep myself and my colleagues awake at night. And one of the things, OC, you may recall, is that earlier, last year, around middle of last year, that's 1 month now.
August.
Okay, then early this year. Yeah, early this year, we, sorry, I lose track of time sometimes. We, in Finance Committee, voted to actually expand the service of Cineco. When Cineco was formed roughly around 20 years ago, it was meant to be a full insurance company, because one of the things you may recall is that while the government made it mandatory for us to have insurance, it didn't make it mandatory for insurance providers to provide us to sell insurance. So one of the things that we wanted to do was actually start to expand the services that Cineco has. Now, let's go back again from memory. And when I looked at the last CIMA's annual report that actually broke down the insurance, I think 2020 was the last annual report I saw for CIMA. Just looking at those numbers. In the domestic healthcare market, the total amount of gross premium written was around $286 million. That roughly had around 65,000 customers in total. Of that $286 million, Cineco did $102 million at roughly 15,100 customers, and the other 50,000 was $184 million. So naturally, my colleagues and I asked the question, wait a minute, how can little 100 million cover 15,000 people and 184 million cover 50,000 people? I mean, do the numbers. And that's when you realize that Cineco, in essence, and the civil servants and the civil service pensioners have actually been subsidizing the the private sector retirees. So if you look at Cineco's last annual report, again, for the year ending 2021, and again, I'm just going by memory, so these are just ballpark, so just bear with me a little bit.
Sure.
The four plans that Cineco operate, which is the civil service, current civil servants, civil service pensioners, the SHIC plan, and then also the veterans and the seamen. Of the veterans and the seamen, those two plans actually lost money. So I think the SHIC plan lost $2.3 million last year, and the veterans and seamen plan lost $300,000 for $2.6 million. But naturally, Cineco still made a profit. So it means then that the only way you can make a profit if you got four plans and two of them is losing money is that the other two is basically covering for it. So when we talk about expanding Cineco, then at the same time, when we look at the other part of the CIMA's report and we look at, say, housing insurance, for example, property insurance, and we go back from Ivan, which is the last period, and we saw the amount of profits being generated in those sectors, we're like, wait a minute, for us to start providing health insurance for our people, we need to move Cineco to a point where it can go into other areas to basically become profitable. Because the plan for us is literally to, I don't want to use the word universal health care coverage, but actually to provide a plan that just about everyone can buy into. Why this became a major issue for my colleagues in this government is there was a one local insurance company when they decided to pull out, which was a large insurance company. A lot of companies, a lot of individuals that had pre-existing conditions, when they went back to buy insurance, found themselves with rates like premiums basically being double and triple in some cases. They've been at one company for years. Then all of a sudden they've been dropped. And now all of a sudden, at a golden stage in their life when they actually need health insurance, the rates are now basically being double and triple. And a lot of the small business could have not absorbed it. So at that point, that's when we sit back and said, you know what? We need to start positioning our own health insurance company now. The one company that we know is not going to leave this island to literally start providing that. What I can say, and again, no, I'm going to get a little bit political in this regard, is that one of the things that we're looking at for the budget, and some of my colleagues I can tell you is pushing for it because I'm one of them and we have had this discussion. I'm not going to say that we have consensus yet because a lot of it is limited to government finances at this point. But one of the first things that we want to do is bring back the free health care for kids and also the free health care for seniors. So I think that the phased approach that we're looking at, and again, this is not consensus, but I'm going to put it out there because, again, it is active discussion within our group among some of the members, is that we start off with anyone 75 years and older and then 12 years and under in 1 year. And then in the next year, in terms of the budget, we'll go to 70 years and older and 16 years and under. So it's almost like a phased approach. So in essence, we will be providing, or we're looking to provide health insurance via Cineco, which is basically 70. Once you're above the age of 70 is what we're targeting, ultimately to get to. And below the age of 16 is to get back the health insurance coverage for our people to basically fix this problem. Because again, these are the structural problems that we have within our system. And then the other issue, again, that we're looking at is also, again, like I said, from a wellness standpoint, is when we look at the expansion of Cineco. Now, by the end of this month, Cineco should be reaching out to other healthcare providers. Because one of the things that we're preparing for now is that as we're now looking to expand our services, we also need to realize that we need to expand our network. So again, Cineco has its own independent board, but I do have an idea what the board is working on. Because I don't want to say that I'm interfering with the board.
Yes, yeah.
But what I can say is that we are looking to say to around some of the local providers, these are the prices that we're getting from the HSA. Can you match these prices? And if that's the case, then we will expand within the network. And then anyone outside the network, we basically will cover like 50%. So if you're a public servant that's listening or a civil servant that's listening, these are the options now that we're actually working on to try to get this in place for the 1st of January next year, where you can get the option of going to your own private doctor. Because one of the things that we find is that people also want choice. I have my own personal doctor that I go to. You know what I mean? And I want to maintain that relationship. So even though I'm with government, since being elected now over 5 years, I have still maintained my private doctor and I've just paid out of pocket. But again, I also do take my health serious from that standpoint because I go and I get my checkup like every 6 months, 7 months and so forth, to see where my markers are on certain things. And that is what it is that we want for our own people, because when we do look at even the cost, the rise in healthcare costs, and to put it in context, to show you how big an issue this is, when the government had created this new infrastructure that we have now in terms of healthcare, and we look at there's the segregated insurance fund, is that the one? Segregated insurance fund. That was meant to cover 50% of indigents. So when the government started it back around maybe 20 years ago, they were collecting about $3-4 million a year. And that was meant to cover the 50% of the indigent costs. Today we're collecting around $5 million a year. And we spend over $50 million a year on indigent in terms of the whole overall. So again, you can directly see where the risk has really shifted to government. And if we don't arrest this issue right now, it's going to have serious financial implications for the overall public. So going back again and recognizing that healthcare itself, as far as this government is concerned, is a basic human right. We need to start making sure now it has become accessible to everyone. And we do recognize that we have one, per the census, it was 91 or 92% of the people, I think, that have health insurance coverage. So we still have to find that 8% that isn't covered and find a way to give them health insurance. Because, again, when you go back to gross national happiness, the most pressing one of those 6 factors is social support, having someone to count on. And we can't have a country where people are literally stressed because of these kind of issues.
Okay. We have 2 callers on hold. We have about 6 minutes before we go to the break. Let's see if we can fit in the 2 callers before we go to our headline news, because we still have to get Mr. Laidlow into the conversation as well. Let's grab the first caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. For the Record.
Good morning.
Oh, morning, Doc.
Good morning, Mr. Deputy Minister, and good morning to the Financial Secretary and your other guests.
Morning, Doc.
Yeah, I have a few questions. My first question is the census pursuant to a law for the government to gather this general information for the population? Is there a census law?
Okay. There actually is a law that covers the, I think Mr. Director, you probably won't put on your headphones. There is actually a law that deals with the census. As a matter of fact, I think the law was actually, was it in 2020? I think it was actually covered, I think, back in Director. Mr. Macfield was asking if there is a law. I think there is a law that deals with the census.
Yes. First of all, good morning to you, and thank you for the question. Good morning to all the persons who are listening to this program now. Yes, we do have the Statistics Law, Revision 2016, and every time there's a census, we do have amendments to the law that governs the conduct of a census. So we would have had in 2021, the period where there are amendments that govern all aspects of the census, including the questions that we ask on the census.
Okay.
So that it's not compulsory that a household has to answer the question?
Yes.
or partake in the census? Is it compulsory? Because I noticed that the financial secretary said there were some hundreds of households who did not comply.
Right.
So it means that if they did not comply, then you don't have an accurate census. You're just guessing. So what is the repercussions if you do not comply with the census?
Well, I can say, Doc, there were some people that we did, I believe, kind of more took a, I don't use the word threatening tone for lack of a better word in terms of like for prosecution, because it's kind of ironic. As a matter of fact, I'm going to say that I don't want vex. When we look at the bulk of the people that did not want to answer in terms of the question and everything, shameful as it is, it was actually mostly the lawyers, them, to some extent, that did not want to provide in a certain area within the country. No, we just sat back and recognized, we didn't expect to get 100%. And the question is, do you want to go through the court process in terms of this? But I can tell you, it was some of them that we actually considered going down the legal route of prosecution, but in the grand scheme of it, and seeing that the response we get, not again recognize that most countries don't get 100%, and that our percentage is actually well above what the international standards is in terms of respondents. We just said, you know what, we just leave it as is and just use an estimate. So in the grand scheme of the 29,699 homes, the 963 really represented a small percent and well below what it is in the global average. I say all of that to say is that our response was well above what it is in most countries for a census. And we, like I said, we expect the margin of error to some extent, but we're comfortable in terms of estimations and everything else. Mm-hmm. But it is a cultural issue, but again, we found it mostly in particular areas within particular people.
Okay.
So my second question then is the last census, I think, was 2009, 2010. 2010. It showed that the expatriate population was growing 2.5%, while the indigenous, while the traditional Cayman population was only growing 1%. So the expatriate population was growing 1.5%, nearly 2% more. What is that growth now? Is it the same, or is it lessened, or it has exceeded? Because I want to know, because of a position that I hold in the country, I would like to know, because that's very, very important. Because when you ask a rhetorical question, who you are developing for, it comes. You answer the question. You're not developing for yourself. You seem to be developing for somebody else. If that growth continues in the country.
Okay, Doc, we're going to take our headline news break. When we return, we're going to have our guest in the studio, our panelists, respond to your second question. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after headline news.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice.
Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
Police are currently on the scene of a fatal single-vehicle collision that happened this morning shortly before 3:40 a.m. It was on Eastern Avenue near Shedden Road, involving a white Honda Accord with 4 occupants. One woman, a 20-year-old, has been pronounced dead, while the other 3 people inside were injured, with 2 in serious condition. The south end of Eastern Avenue between Shedden and Champion House Restaurant was temporarily closed, but has now been reopened. Police say the matter is under investigation, and anyone who may have witnessed the incident or has any information is encouraged to call the Traffic and Roads Policing Unit on 649-6254. You can also call the Georgetown Police Station on 949-4222 or make an anonymous tip by calling 949-7777. This is Cayman's 12th road death of 2022. That's your latest news. I'm Karsley Fuller.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Our panelists, we're going to give you an opportunity to respond to Dr. Markfield's questions and points. But let's grab the other caller. And then, Ms. Susan, what we want to do after that, we want to close off the lines briefly again because we need to get Mr. Laidlaw into the conversation as well. And there are still many important points that the Deputy Premier wants to cover. So while at the same time we want to get feedback from our listening audience, we want to be able to strike that balance because, of course, we only go until 10 o'clock, but we could always have him come back on.
So this is very important.
Well. Yes.
If we need to come back, we'll come back.
Definitely.
This is definitely important.
Definitely. So let's grab the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Thanks for being so patient.
Good morning, OC, Deputy Premier, together with your team there.
Good morning.
Morning.
First thing, let me compliment the Deputy Premier that although he is now a politician, his level of mastery of the detail and being able to express it, he continues to look pretty much like he's still a technocrat. And I don't mean that to be a slight on Mr. Laidlaw or Mr. Jefferson. But my question is this. You spoke about the need for a fair and equitable development, also that certain people might be feeling disenfranchised. People in Cayman at the moment, I know, are worried about status grants and then PR grants, the preference in jobs, both in government and outside. And they also just worry about the fact that Caymanians now are in the minority. And this is, I think, it is now more like a follow-up to what Dr. Steve asked, although I was going to ask it anyway. So my question is this. Is there any deliberate policy on the part of the government to ensure that there is a preservation of the majority status of Caymanians? In other words, is government going to use these statistics to ensure that it deals with these three issues here, especially the loss of social, political, economic turf to people from outside? I know that you have spoken about the need to balance whatever you do, but is there a specific policy to ensure that Caymanians remain the majority in the country as well as in those other areas of human endeavor? That's my question. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, caller, for that. Deputy Premier?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to start off by two things that I want to touch on with the census first. But before getting into that, I just want to make a note. Last week, and one of the things that we have been waiting on was actually the census document. Last week, the Cabinet actually approved the committee to review the PR point system. And I guess I can make the public know, I think the press release is going out this week anyway. And of course, Dr. Steve Matfield is actually chair of that committee. I think Patricia Esquit is deputy chair. It also includes Cindy Scotland, Taron Jackman, Nichelle Welcome Scott, Woody Foster, and several other people in the ministry and so forth in terms of going through the point system. Mm-hmm. And we went through carefully in terms of the people that we selected for that committee because we wanted people that balance from different perspectives and everything else. But to answer the question, one of the things that was actually jumped out at me in the census that I didn't know, but I was pleasantly surprised with in terms of where it was. We used to look at our fertility rate. Now, the natural rate of replacement rate, your population replacement rate, is actually 2.0. For the simple fact it takes two people to make two people, a male and a female. At least some countries may argue differently now. But at least in the Cayman Islands, it takes a male and a female, two people. When those two people transition to the other side, if they have made two kids, then in essence they would have replaced themselves with two people. So you would have a steady population. When we look at our fertility rate in the census, it's actually 2.0. But then when we break it down between Caymanian versus non-Caymanian, the Caymanian fertility rate is actually 2.1. And you need a rate of 2.1 to actually say that you're growing. And the non-Caymanian fertility rate is actually 1.9. So in other words, we are growing the Caymanian population from a fertility replacement standpoint. So for every 20,000 people, you get replaced by 21,000 people. Mm-hmm. So you get extra 1,000 people, every generation and so forth coming up. So that was one of the things I was worried about because the last time when we did a rough calculation, we were actually looking at 1.9. But even though it's 2.0, The Caymanian replacement rate is 2.1, and you need at least 2.1 to be growing. So at least we are growing the Caymanian population. The second issue that we also need to look at, and again, why the Human Development Index is one of the things that we're looking at. When you look back again on the quality of life, and they talk about the income level, I'm sorry, to talk about economic structure, which is under the whole issue of income. There are three primary economic structures. You have the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. Primary is basically agriculture and mining, anything where you're touching the earth, anything they're doing. Then there's secondary, which is in essence manufacturing in terms of where you're processing the stuff that you have mined or you have grown. And then the third is actually services based, all the administrative, the sales, and everything else. We are at 95% tertiary economy. We don't have a primary economy. We don't have a secondary economy. So whenever people sit back, and this is why, again, we really want the HDI done, because when people are saying, oh, well, Canada is doing this, well, Canada can do that, because Canada has primary and secondary industries. We don't. We literally have a service-based economy. So it's never apples to apples, and that's why it's important that when we start getting these HDI scores and we start looking at the different sections that other countries do, we can say exactly where it is that we stand on certain things. And like I said before when I started the show, we get lumped into the UK's HDI score, being a British overseas territory, but our economy is nowhere like what as diversified as the UK economy is.
Yes,
So to go back to the caller's question in terms of, is there a set policy? The first question I asked, the first thing I will say for this government, yes, I can't answer for previous government, but I can say for myself and my colleagues when we meet on caucus literally every Monday, these again are the questions in which we are asking in terms of, how is it that our people are benefiting? So when you look at something as simple as the CIDB still has a fixed rate of 3.75% in terms of for a 2-year, locked in for at least 2 years, up to $600,000 if you want to get a loan or a refinance, versus now a prime rate of 5.5%. We make these decisions. When you talk about even the electricity assistance program that we're doing, again, we make these decisions in terms of helping our people. Now, is it exactly ideal where we want? No. And this is why we're actually pushing the e-government initiative where we have that national ID so you can start recognizing who is the people versus who's the other people and everything else. But one of the things, I can say this much, and this is what people can take comfort in. And forgive me, but I mean, I'm still, as what they call us, a politician. Who I'm working for me is very simple. I work for voters. The only people who can vote in this country are Caymanians. So for every policy that we take, I mean, it is in essence what is the benefit of the voters / Caymanians over the long period of time. I'll be stupid, and my colleagues will be stupid or really stupid, to go out and be doing a whole pile of work for a pile of people who can't vote for you. I mean, it just makes no sense. You know what I mean? So you don't get where you get in this business by doing stuff for people who can't vote for you. So for me, it is very simple in terms of what it is that we want. We recognize that the land ownership issue is a problem. So what are we doing? We're actually going around now. We have been buying up land. And if you look at the cabinet, somewhere almost every week, there's a piece of land being bought. Right now, we're starting our pilot program in East End, where we bought land in East End. We're actually subdividing that land in East End, and I've been reliably informed that for a house lot, roughly around 0.2 of an acre, quarter acre, is going to be sold for $35,000. This is happening this year. So we recognize that if the market itself can't provide certain things for our people, then we ourselves need to step in and provide that. No, equally, I can tell you, we are, well, again, I don't want to take the thunder from the other minister, but we talk. I can tell the Minister Jay up in Northside, who's also Minister of Housing, there's a piece of property in town that the government right now is looking at putting 90 condos on. Again, targeting the middle-income Caymanians, young professional Caymanians coming out of school that can't get directly a piece. So and I can tell you the price point that they're coming in at is like literally 50% of the market value. Of course, there'll be certain things tied in to make sure they don't buy it and flip it and all that kind of stuff. But again, this is about recognizing. And this is one of the reasons why even when I met with CIDB a couple of weeks ago, we started pushing a reverse mortgage product again too. Start again pushing on these things in terms of moving to qualitative life. I can't speak for the previous government. What I would say to anybody, and I don't make any excuses for what it is, because when I ran, I knew what the problems of this country were, and I ran on a platform to fix it. No, we didn't get there overnight, but we intend to fix these problems. So we look at the PR point system. I can tell you it is very skewed towards a certain demographic, was almost social engineered. And one of the reasons why we wanted Dr. Macfield to chair that particular committee is, one, because of his historical knowledge, and two, is also his ability to then travel from the district to the district to say, you know what, here's what it is that we're looking at. Ultimately, it is the community, not politicians, should be deciding who it is that becoming Caymanians. For years, we had a system that you had the rollover system, and then the only way you can become long enough to apply to be a Cayman is a key employee. Now, it means the only way you could have been a key employee is unless your employer designated you a key employee. So in essence, it was employers who were deciding who was staying here long enough to become key employee to apply for PR.
Precisely.
It can't be like that. And if there's one thing that COVID have shown, is that jobs that we thought were valuable, not that we're not, certain jobs aren't, and everything else, but jobs that we looked at before, we're like, wait a minute, this job is now actually more essential than we thought it was before. And what I do expect that committee to come back with, and again, I don't want to preempt the committee in terms of what it is that they're doing, and I want them to leave freely, but we want them to come back again with the criteria of, these are the points that we want, in the sense of where our people said, this is what we want Caymanians to look like. This is what we want Caymanians to be. Because I've said it for years, OC. Our success as a country has never been from immigration. It has been from integration. People coming here, becoming part of the social fabric and contributing. That's what it has been about. And where we have lost along the line is that we have lost on the integration. Within our budget alone for Minister Bernie Bush, we have actually included $2 million per year in both years for Bernie to actually have more social programs to actually bring our people together. I'm old enough to remember that, when I was a young boy growing up, curry chicken and curry goat was a certain demographics would eat it. You tell a Cayman, that curry chicken and curry goat, not for them. They will tell you, not only did they invent the curry, but the Indians stole it from them too, because it has become part of our culture. So this is what it is about when we're talking about building that balanced society. I can tell you, for me coming out, and I'll say to anybody, our success is in terms of creating jobs. Again, we only have a tertiary, a service-based economy. So there's how much jobs you can create. You got roughly 1,000 kids coming to school every year. So we need to make sure we got at least 1,000 jobs being created. But then at the same time, when the census come in, make sure that these are good paying jobs. We now have the data broken down, and I can tell you now, as also the Minister for Labour, I look in certain sectors, and I look at the demographics between male and female. Again, recognizing now that even though we look at it on industry, you have different levels of seniority. Our job now as part of the Ministry of Labour now is to actually deep dive into that data and say what percentage of this is male versus female. Look in some cases, you see where the males are getting paid more than the females in some industry. You're like, okay, we need to make sure that that's a genuine based on job and not based on description. On anything else. Equally, we look at jobs with industry between Caymanian versus non-Caymanian. When you look at some of the positions, you notice that some non-Caymanians earn more than Caymanians. I was even surprised in the construction industry. Women are only, I think, 8% of the industry. 501, I think, if memory serves me right. But they, on average, are making more money than the men inside the construction industry. So we need to deep dive down into these data now to see exactly where the price point is. Because part of our job, as I said at the press conference, is for the ESO team and my ministry to sit now with the relevant ministries and say, wait a minute now that we recognize that diabetes is a problem, we recognize that lower limb is a problem, we recognize that cataract is a problem, what policies can we put in place? We have already started that ahead of this information coming out public by saying, we want to start with our civil servants and open that the private sector will follow suit to say, well, we're taking our 4,000 people, we're going to get that executive medical check done. Yes, it's going to cost us about $2 million, but what we can save in the future by spending this money now, by making this investment now. Because one of the mindset that we need to change, OC, more than anything, we look at what we spend on education, we look at what we spend on healthcare, we look at those things as being an expense. Where this government is concerned, we see it as an investment. Exactly. I would prefer spend that $2 million up now and someone realize, even if it's just one person, realize, wait a minute, I am pre-diabetic and I did not know. I've seen some skinny people walking around that is as unhealthy as crazy, and I see some fat people that call it fat healthy or skinny fat, and all of these different terms, is to get the people to start realizing, wait a minute, this is the one body you have. Life expectancy, women are 85, men are at 79. You're going to be in this body for at least till you're 85 or to a man you're 79. Let us make sure we take care of it from now, because the last thing I want is to someone just wake up and realize they got an emergency. Because there's those emergencies that runs up our healthcare costs more than anything else.
Okay. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to throw the mic over to Mr. Laidlaw as well. Deputy Premier, this person has written in and said, I think the proposal that the Deputy Premier has in respect to free health care should be for the people that need it, but not across the board. That will be way too expensive for any government going forward. So we're going to take that commercial break.
I'll respond to that before I come back. Yeah.
Okay. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
JN Money, money touchdown. Send the money now. Reach wow. You say you need some money. JN Money, I can send it in a hurry. Get through quick when you come collect your cash, or use a money card and swipe it in a flash. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we a pick, yeah. Send and receive funds at any JN Money location. It's fast, affordable, and convenient. Money touchdown with JN Money. Send funds to any bank, yeah. Pay your bills quick, yeah. Low fees, you know what it, yeah. JN Money, we a pick, yeah.
Call 345-945-2014 for details. Available at JN Money locations across the Cayman Islands.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're discussing the Cayman Islands 2021 Census of Population and Housing report. That conversation is taking place with Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw, the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, also with us, the Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and the Honorable Christopher Saunders, Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, and other ministries as well. Just share some of the emails before we go back over to the minister who wants to respond to one message that we received. This person says, good morning, having participated in the census. This information is very enlightening. Kindly advise how we can access this vital document online. And we will have Mr. Laidlaw cover that and on his discussion as well. Then we have another one here. It says, the person says, fantastic to hear the Deputy Premier talking about real issues that affect real Caymanians. In my 42 years of living here, this is the first time I'm hearing these matters talked about in a serious and sober manner. I recall the population being around 16,000 in 1979. the important point to make is that this mind-boggling increase is what it is today, to what it is today is not a natural population increase by any stretch of the imagination. It has been purely driven by the importation of workers more than not cheap labor. Businesses have been allowed to import cheap labor to maximize their profit margins, which is why many jobs are not able to be done by Caymanians because they do not pay a living wage. It is a madcap, crazy situation. So over to you, Deputy Premier.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, OC, and thank the last person for recognizing the conversation that my colleagues and I are having has been sobering, because I can tell you right now, the things that we focus on are the things that keep families awake at night. I mean, it's just that simple. I want to touch back on the issue with the universal healthcare issue. Is that, first of all, where we stand, healthcare is a basic human right. And the minute you start getting into, well, who can afford and who can't afford, what you have created is, and this has been an issue that we've been wrestling with in this country, is the widening dignity gap of our people. Because there are many people that we think can afford things, and in essence can't afford things. When we were having the discussion with regards to the free school lunches, we know that there are some parents out there who could afford the lunch. But the question is, for those who couldn't afford, we did not want to create this stigma within the school where somebody's showing up with money and then somebody's showing up with something different. We wanted, again, as we said, equal opportunities, not to guarantee equal outcomes. If some people have done extremely well, then why should they be punished for whatever reason? They're still citizens. They're still... And democracy itself was meant to be the great equalizer. When we look at our population, the last census, I think we have over 5,600 people that were above the age of 65. Here's a catch. If any one of those people have a medical emergency, the government, and they basically say, I'm indigent, the government is obligated to still pay for them once they're Caymanian. Let's establish that. Okay? The second issue is this. When we, by us getting them insurance, our reinsurance kick in at a certain point. Whereas if they have no insurance, whether it's 1 million or 2 million, we're fully on the hook for that. If we go out and we get insurance for our population, at least we can limit our risk to a certain extent. But when you start getting into, well, who can this, who can that, let me tell you something. You look at the pension. Right now, I think by law is $1,800 a month, I think you get back. A person above the age of 65, 70, to get a good health insurance plan, you're talking about anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 per month, which is well above what it is that we're looking at. So again, I go back again to gross national happiness. What is the number one thing that people want in countries to make them happy? Social support, having someone to count on. And not because you may think a person has it, because we have seen people out there who some people who don't have their age and some people who don't have their wage. That's a fact. You know what I mean? And I've seen people who, and especially in this business now, where I've seen people who have reached out to me for help. It is some of the people are actually quite shocking. You know what I mean? So this is why I take the approach that I take sometimes, where I prefer to go to visit someone else. Even if we're back to school drive, I prefer go and deliver what it is I need to deliver to a person home. You're not going to see Chris out there doing the other stuff. Not that I don't enjoy doing it, and I love attending those functions, because you get to sometimes see the joy of all those kids coming together and everything else. But everybody got different reasons. Everybody got different approaches. But what we don't want to get into is just us and them. You know what I mean? And we have seen it now where a lot of politicians in other countries have been screaming this term income inequality. OC, from the beginning of time, we have had income inequality. What has made Cayman different and what have made other countries different wasn't income inequality, was income mobility. The ability to say you can start here through hard work, determination, consistency, you can do well. And we have too many people in Cayman right now that have worked hard, done extremely well, have been very committed, and they have been rewarded for it. And equally, we have some people who, despite all of the different efforts that they have done, have not done, and I would say, well, in terms of financial, I should say that, Because at the end of the day, to quote Bob Marley, money don't make you happy. You know, there's one definition of success that I saw I picked up from Earl Nightingale, and is one of the persons I listen to as part of my morning routine. His definition of success was a progressive realization of a worthy ideal, in the sense of if you went to school and you say, you know, I want to be a school teacher, or I want to be a mechanic, or whatever it is that you're doing that makes you happy, and you're progressing in that, is what it is about. But the last thing that we want when we talk about being a balanced society, no, let's be realistic. We have our decades of quote unquote, and I'll say it, the business people or the / merchant class running this country. We have our decades of it. It's been like that for a long time. Are we going to change a lot of the effects of these things overnight? The answer is absolutely not. It is not going to happen. But you know what? We have to start somewhere. And I'm pleased to say that with my colleagues in the way in which we've approached issues, I mean, I can tell you, you'll hear the stories out there when people say, oh, we hear there's infighting in the government, we hear there's argument in the government. And you're not supposed to. This is still a business of competing ideas. You know, the things that I want to push, it doesn't necessarily mean that other people may feel the same way, but I can go for what it is now. I look at the census that says, you know, Bordentown at the ice in terms of house insurance. Then, even before that census results came out, you don't think Chris Saunders knew that Bordentown people had an issue in terms of house insurance? So why do you think we're pushing to expand Cynical, which is part of my ministerial responsibility? Of course, because from speaking to my people, you know, I do want to offer them options in terms of getting better house insurance and everything else. You know, I want them to have the option where they can something more competitive. And we're not that profit-driven as other people and so forth, but at the same time, not trying to take business from the private sector from that standpoint, but at least offering people an alternative to something else. And hopefully that the private sector will respond and say, you know what, maybe we should lower the rate here, maybe we should make an adjustment there. That is what it is that you do expect in a society. What we have had in Cayman, and I'm going to say it right now, is runaway capitalism. We're talking about having capitalism with none of the safeguards. We have some issues here in Cayman that are completely unregulated. And again, not to pick on even the real estate and valuation market, but Caymanian wealth is tied up in valuations. And I've seen some valuators come inside people's homes, and God knows the valuation that they come up with. But again, we have people just crawling right off of the plane as a work permit and jumping up because they're RICS or whatever, certified. All of a sudden, this is the value, this is that is that, and then wiping on people's equity, where people need that money to go to the bank to basically get even a loan to do something, or even a student loan for the kids or something, and one person comes in and like $30,000-$40,000 off of the equity is gone, like overnight. But then when you go in some areas of the country and you look at where the valuation is, you're like, wait a minute, where did this even come from? You know, so these are the kind of stuff that we have to deal with. Now, do you take the heavy-handed approach? Because I can say this much, and I've said it at the press conference, OC. The last thing that people want, and you can learn from other people, is politicians getting involved in your market system. Our job is regulation. In the other places that they have done it, it has been a disaster. Because the minute the populism comes when it may sound good and feel good, it's a different story. And that's the reason why I said Jim Ricardo was the first U.S. president to find out that the office of the president is there to preserve democracy, but the Federal Reserve is there to preserve capitalism. This is why it's important for us to find a balance. And I can tell you, as a Minister of Labour, it for me is even more compounding. An ideal situation, you have the employers on one side, you got the unions on one side, and the government basically defining. No, because we have created this thing as if the unions are bad. You know what I mean? It's okay for the businesses and everybody to get together with their association, but the minute the employees now want to get together, it becomes an issue. And see, I want to leave this thing with most people. I want people to consider this. And I'm going to get real technical now, so just bear with me a little bit. In school, we were taught that the factors of production was land, labor, and capital. If you go through history, the three of them did not arrive at the table at the same time. The first factor of production was land. The king owned it. That was it. And at the end of the day, whatever the king said goes. That's the system we had for years. When did that change? The American Revolution, or the American War of Independence, where a lot of Americans basically became very rich and decided they want to challenge the king. In the UK, those guys already had, through the Magna Carta and the Battle of Hastings and everything, they had a representation in the UK Parliament all the barons. It wasn't regular common people up inside, it was the barons. They're American rich people. It wasn't the regular Americans that take on the king, it was the American rich people. Decide, you know what, we have no representation up there, so you can't tax us, and we're not going to representation. So, no taxation without representation. They went, and the capitalists, they raised enough money, and with the help of the French, who didn't like the British, and the help of the Dutch, who didn't like the British, they basically challenged the mighty King George. And the capitalists got their seat at the table when they won. So now, the two factors of production is now land and capital. Because people with capital show that once I got money, I should now have a seat at the table. It took 150 years later for a gentleman by the name of James R. Offer, or Jimmy Offer as they call him, with the Teamsters Union, to start breaking in.
Some say it's buried here.
On the labor side. You know what I mean? You had presidents out there that were union busters. You had presidents out there that was owned by the people with money and everything else. And you had some who basically fought. And I mean, credit to some who actually came in and said, you know what, we want to push the unions, we want to push this, we want to push that. It took 150 years later. I mean, thereabouts, for labor to get their seat at the table. But let me tell you one thing, they did not come to the seat willingly. Because these guys are saying, you can have the land you want, you can have all the money you want. If we don't put our sweat equity in this, we're not going to talk either. So again, it took for them to get their seat at the table.
Certainly. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, Mr. Laidlaw, we need you to tell us about the census, and I believe we had one question from one of our listeners as well in relation to how to access the document, and want you to talk about, user friendliness of it, as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
Make your house into a home. Welcome to Brand Source Home Gallery, your source for premium products and a premium experience. We'll design and install your dream kitchen with crafted cabinets, complemented with elegant appliances. We'll fill it with quality houseware and cookware. Custom-designed closet and storage solutions organize and beautify any area. And with the finest bedding, you'll get a perfect night's sleep knowing Brand Source Home Gallery has everything you need to make your house a home.
Tune in Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. for the Daily Sports Report, covering local, regional, and international sports. Proudly brought to you by Dr. Wayne Porter, offering a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. Call 946-9020 to book your appointment today.
The public are advised of the following road closure. The section of Cardinal Avenue between Albert Panton Street and Edward Street will be temporarily closed to traffic, projected to reopen at the end of August. As part of the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative, work is being carried out to transform Cardinal Avenue into a pedestrian-friendly street. For more information, members of the public can follow the Georgetown Revitalization Initiative on Facebook and Instagram at GT Revitalization.
For the record, with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record, with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, we have the Deputy Premier, Minister of Finance, Honorable Chris Saunders. Also with us, the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw, and Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson. I keep promising you that we're going to get to Mr. Laidlaw. We're going to just have Mr. Jefferson respond to one of the callers' questions, and I promise you, you will hear from Mr. Laidlaw. Mr. Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. Yes, and I'm responding to Dr. McField's query from quite some time back in terms of the population size and the growth and the percentage between Caymanian and non-Caymanian. Briefly, and Dr. McField, this information I'm taking from page 6 of the census document. In 2010, the previous census, the total population, the household population estimate in 2010 was approximately 55,000. We're now saying that in 2021, that number has risen to 71,100 approximately. And so that's a 29% growth in those numbers, in the 55,000 over those 11 years. In terms of annual growth, that would then translate into about 2.4% annual growth over each of those 11 years to allow us to arrive at the 71,000. Okay. In terms of 2010 to 55,000, the Caymanian component of that was approximately 31,000, and therefore the non-Caymanian was approximately 24,000. In 2021, the 71,100 household population estimate, that translated into a Caymanian component of approximately 38,000, and the non-Caymanian element being therefore approximately 33,000. In terms of percentage changes, then on an annual basis, the Caymanian growth, the growth in the Caymanian population over that 11-year period would be annually around 1.92% each of those 11 years. The non-Caymanian element, the population growth annually is around 3%. So there is a gap there, which I think might have been what Dr. McFeel was hinting at. So those are the numbers.
Okay. Mr. Laidlow.
Okay, thank you, OC. At this juncture, I want to reassure the public that the data given to the Economics and Statistics Office remain confidential. Neither the Minister of Finance, nor the Premier, nor the opposition, or any agency can see any individual data that can identify any person. So I just want you to be reassured, despite the exciting discussion and the policy that they look evaluated and want to put in place, that your data will not be shared with any of these agencies, any agency whatsoever. However, it is interesting that we're having this kind of discussion, because we can have the we have the policymakers at the table, we have civil society, we have the private sector, we have non-profit organization, educators, academic researchers, and we have the media. And all of these agencies can also hold the political directorate accountable, simply because you know the data, what it is as of October, you know where you are at that point in time, and you know what are the issues from that data, and as a result, you can then hold them accountable as what you want to do for us. So that is important in terms of the census. But the census is only one of many surveys conducted by the Economics and Statistics Office. We recently had a labor force survey that concluded in May, and you will get the report in short order. We also have another one that's coming up in October this year. Next year, we also have what we call the HBS, Household Budget Survey. It's a little more tedious because we will ask you to track your expenditure such that we can compose a different basket for the Consumer Price Index. So we have a series of surveys in the pipeline, and what we would like the general public to do, to continue welcoming the enumerators and give them this data. Because if they don't get this data, then we don't want to be planning for your future with in a black hole, something that we don't know. So you shed light on the data, we'll put it in a report, we'll give it back to you, and as a result, you can then do your planning. Whether you're a business or you're an individual, whatever aspect of society, wherever you are.
Yes.
So the idea here is that everyone can get access to this data. It's on the ESO website. It's www.eso.ky, and you can look at any section of the report. The entire document you can download, or you can look at it by sections. So it depends on the section that interests you. Let's suppose it's education. You can just click to education, and it will take you right to that section of the report, as opposed to the other 11 sections. With this census, we had a lot of new information that we have never collected before, like information on crime, the extent of, persons are victim of crime, and the extent of which they're reporting that crime. That's an area we haven't even touched yet. We also had information on agriculture. How many persons are surviving of agriculture? That data is also in the census. How many persons have food insecurity? Are we going to bed hungry? To what extent is the population, deprived of the resources to buy food or to cultivate. We also had information for the first time, and household participation in environmentally friendly activities. So we are seeing the agriculture mixed with the purchases of agricultural produce in the census for the first time. So there are many areas that almost every aspect of society can look at in this document. And again, it's available on our website. We will have hard copies available shortly. They're in print now. And they will be at every health center, every aspect, every area of this country. We'll also have a series of short videos where we are explaining the results to all residents in these islands.
Excellent, excellent.
In terms of our surveys, by law, legally, all our surveys are mandatory. Regarding the census, we had just about 529 households that refused to participate. We want to encourage that household to give us your information. One, we are protecting your information. We are protecting your information, not only that it cannot be shared, there's no identifying information that's saved on our website and our servers. So even if something, God forbid, will happen, then you still cannot identify any person or any organization on any of those computers. Because once we collect that data, those identifiers are removed permanently. Once we already collect the information, we edit it and we verify that it's correct to the best of the collection systems, then we get rid of the identifiers. Our data is not subject to FOI requests. So they're all free from FOI requests, and our servers are also partitioned from the rest of central government. And just rest assured, as you've in the past, we have never ever had a data breach at the Economics and Statistics Office. We secure your data as though our life depends on it. And we want to make sure that you continue to entrust us with your data.
Now, for Mr. Laidlaw, for those persons who advocate the stick approach in terms of enforcing the law, since it's mandatory that a person should provide information, what is the view of the office in relation to that? Forcing information from persons, are you necessarily guaranteed that you're going to get correct information, as opposed to using the carrot approach, which is reassuring persons that whatever information they are providing, it remains confidential, they're not identified in any way, and dispelling all rumors that people may try to spread, well, they're preparing to impose income tax on you, that's why they want to know certain information. Tell us about the downside of trying to force persons to provide information.
Well, thank you, OC. But we believe at the ESO that persons in the Cayman Islands are inherently honest. And in the last census, almost 98% of the population gave us their data willingly. So we are looking at between 2 and 3% of the population that may not, find some way not to give the data. But whatever we conclude from the data, 98% is a pretty high bar for any country, anywhere in the world. But we still encourage those persons to participate. We prefer to go with moral suasion and talk to individuals and let them know the importance of this data. For example, you want your data to be part of this conversation right now, that you have contributed to the conversation because your information is being discussed as to how your lives can be improved. Precisely. And that is what we want to encourage. But at the other end of the spectrum, we must obey the law also. But we're taking only the extreme view, but we will try to do everything else that's possible to collect that data. But I suspect at some point in the future, we don't want persons believing that they will just get away scot-free for not providing the data, since it's mandatory by law. Okay? One of the reasons we try not to enforce the law at this juncture is because we we believe that the credibility of the data is more important than the 1% that will not give us the data. What we don't want is persons falsifying information, because that is also illegal.
Yes.
Falsifying information. But we cannot plan the future of a country with false information. It means you would have flawed policies. So we want to encourage persons to give the information, we will protect the information, and we can have good policies.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Laidlaw. And for those of you who thought Mr. Laidlaw was a fictional character, you just heard his voice on For the Record. We're going to take our last commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
We think it's time you crossed over to a new vehicle. And with the Toyota Corolla Cross, now at Vamt Motors, you have plenty of reasons to make the switch. The crossover body and hybrid engine is a sleek design in a sturdy structure with a spacious interior that opens to extensive cargo space. Stuck in traffic? The high-performance self-charging hybrid system automatically switches between gas and electric vehicle mode, helping you lower both fuel costs and carbon emissions. The Corolla Cross has full LED lighting inside and out, an integrated display audio system with energy monitor, and a dual-zone climate control system to ensure comfort for all. Test drive the new Toyota Corolla Cross Hybrid today at Vamt Motors, Walkers Road.
What's that? No sugar, same amazing taste? Coca-Cola Zero Sugar is here to stay. Classic taste, pure satisfaction. Be sure to stop into any Tortuga location and get your own case of Coke Zero. Or grab an ice cold one straight from the cooler. Brought to you by Tortuga Distributors Limited. Coca-Cola, taste the feeling, Cayman.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating.
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
As a general rule, your septic tank should be pumped out by a professional every 3 years. During hurricane season, however, it is important to keep your septic tank at least partially full to keep it from floating or collapsing during a storm. For more useful hurricane preparedness tips, visit the Water Authority's website at www.waterauthority.ky or follow us on social media.
For the Record with Ort Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the Record with Ort Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We're on the last leg of the show this morning with Deputy Premier and Minister of Finance, Honorable Chris Saunders, Financial Secretary, Mr. Kenneth Jefferson, and Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Mr. Adolphus Laidlaw. Mr. Laidlaw and Mr. Jefferson, any final comments you have before we pass the mic over to the Deputy Premier? Starting with you, Mr. Laidlaw.
Yes, thank you, OC. Again, I want to thank everyone involved, all the households in Cayman that gave us the data. I want to thank also the staff of the Economics and Statistics Office and the Ministry, the wider body of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. We at the ESO only 24 employees, and I could not ask for a bunch of persons that are more hardworking than the staff at the ESO. We believe in deadlines, we believe in accuracy, and I want to just say that we try our utmost best, even if to work on weekends, whatever it is, to make sure that we can put the data out there, so make sure we can meet all our deadlines and that our policymakers have all data that they need. So, for example, the minister is focusing a lot on the HDI and the gross happiness indicators, and we have already started putting systems in place such that we can deliver on those indicators. For example, one of the indicators that we put into the census when, upon taking office and he articulated those policies that he wanted to look at, the happiness indicator. We put in education and literacy, which is the first time we were ever testing that question ever in any census. And what we discovered is that we have a very high level of literacy in the Cayman Islands. You can look at that aspects of the report. In terms of the HDI, in short order, we will start putting the numbers together. We still have a few numbers outstanding in terms of a few indicators, but once all those indicators, we have them in office, then we'll then compute the HDI. In terms of the gross indicator, we are looking at several approaches. So again, we're delving down into the details and to see whether or not we can collect some of that data from the public and ask them about their feelings, since it's a more psychological evaluation than anything else. We can also incorporate the original authors of the gross happiness indicator computers and ask that the Cayman Islands be included, not necessarily under the UK, but even if it's not published, but they can also do the computation. We can do the surveys and they can do the computations and give us that ranking. So we can try it from many angles to satisfy those criteria.
Okay. FS?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Connor. And I too would like to echo what Mr. Laidlaw just said by thanking the public for participating and allowing the census document to be produced, and would strongly encourage the public to get the document and to look at it and to familiarize themselves with the vast amount of information contained in it, and certainly if it's too daunting, you can choose a particular section. So there is an index, a table of contents at the very beginning of the document, which again gives the 12 sections of the document, starting with population, going down to illness, education, etc., finishing off with agriculture, fishing, and food security. So there's something in the document that will be bound to be of interest to every member of the public, and I encourage them to get it. At the moment, it's available electronically on eso.ky, and soon to be in physical hard copies throughout the island. So make yourself familiar with the document. It's important for your education, for your knowledge, and you can interact then more sensibly, more usefully with your MP based on the information that you may gather. So I say thank you and encourage the public to take a look at this document.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. As usual, you get the last words, not word.
Thank you, Lucy. And I want to thank FS Financial Secretary and Chief Officer, Mr. Jefferson, and Director Laidlaw for joining me this morning, also for your listening public, for those that are still tuning in. There are two things I just want to start off by touching on that we didn't really touch on, but Director Laidlaw had mentioned it earlier, and that is the issue on crime. And I can say that my colleagues and I are concerned with the amount of crime. First, the amount that has happened, and also the amount that wasn't reported. That is a very slippery slope that we never ever want to go down. The minute our people start becoming desensitized to crime, it will become a breeding ground for other things. So we need to make sure that this culture of, nobody wants to be informed, nobody wants to be a snitch, it has no place in civil society. Because ultimately the police is there to protect the law-abiding citizens from those who would want to basically take their harm, do them harm. At the end of the day, when people form governments, they form government with three primary purposes: to protect their life, to protect their liberties, and to protect their properties. And we have an obligation and a responsibility, all of us, elected or not, as citizens of any country, to make sure that we maintain an environment where we all have an opportunity to live our best lives. So, I will say to people, when you do see crime, I'm going to beg you to report it. It is something that's issue. The other thing I want to touch on, OC, is on the health insurance, well, that's health in general and also health insurance. We see from the census that as of October 10th last year, there were 3,644 people that had no health insurance, of which 2,719 were Caymanians. Now, that again is too high a number for this government to directly live with. And again, even ahead of getting the census report, we do recognize that we had a health insurance issue. And as a result, we already took the steps or the measures in place to start expanding Cynical and expanding the services, but at the same time we also had to de-risk Cynical in the sense of, again, when you look at $102 million in premium for 15,000 people and $184 million for 50,000 people, it means that the taxpayers of this country is paying way too much. Or the private sector is really very, very efficient. But we know that's really not the case, probably somewhere in the middle there. But we need to make sure that people have something as basic as health insurance in place. Because one of the most important things to anyone is pretty much their health. You know what I mean? And we have seen too many people sacrifice their health to get wealth and then sacrifice their wealth to get back their health. You know what I mean? That is important to this government. And again, I want to give Minister Turner props because wellness has been one of the big things you're pushing. And I mean, she and I are actually working on this initiative where Cynical is starting out. And we're hoping that it can actually, other employers will follow suit. Because I mean, once we finish with the with our core employees, we'd also like to eventually get into their families and everything else too. You know what I mean? But because we want an entire healthy population. The government can't do this alone. We can't bear the cost alone. You know what I mean? And we are working with other providers to really get some really good rates. You know, because we want people to be able to arrest a lot of these issues before they become an issue. So those are the kind of stuff. There are things that have been going well between the 2010 census and the 2021. We look at our literacy rate, 98.6%. It's higher than the global average, is around 86, 87%. And it's higher than the Latin American Caribbean average, is around 95%. So we do have, that's one of the metrics we're looking at. And again, as I spoke earlier about expanding the free ICC and UCC that we have included in the strategic policy statement, bearing in mind that we made that commitment within 3 months after we formed the government. Again, we recognize that educational attainment is a big thing for this government. Opportunities is a big thing for this government. And regardless of whatever people may think about education, to quote Nelson Mandela, it is the only weapon we have in the war on poverty. And I can tell you, I have seen too many people in Cayman, and I can speak from my own family, my own personal experiences, that because of education I've had opportunities that many people would not have had. And as a result of that, I also want to make sure that is one of the things that we're pushing for. I can equally say too, one of the things that we have adjusted, and I'm not sure if it's official policy, but if it has been implemented as yet, and it may have slipped my mind because I have so much things going through my head. But one of the things that I had personally pushed for, which I can say the Minister of Education did support, was even doing away or lowering the GPA requirement for scholarships. I mean, I can tell people that when I was given my scholarship in the first year of university, and this is public knowledge, I got let loose in New York. And OC, well, you lived in New York, so you know what fun New York is. My first year of college, my GPA was 1.69. No, I'm not going to tell people I was stupid or nothing, but boy, Chris was party. Chris having fun. And Chris thought he could have gone through and put the textbook under the pillow the night before and get osmosis and all that kind of stuff. No, it's a government time. No, man, we're going past the 10 o'clock. I'm sorry. If we're going to pay for it, we pay for it. I know the Minister of Finance very well. You know what I mean? But again, having gotten that second opportunity, that second chance, where, you know, I was able to continue my scholarship and then went back to school and did, well, I would like to say really good, you know, from that standpoint. I need to make sure that that was available to me. It remains available to others.
Yes.
20 years now I've left school. No one has ever asked me what my GPA was. But I can tell you what, they've asked me what my degree has been in. So I saw it as being completely, I don't want to say waste of time to ask students to maintain a 3.25 if the university require you to have a 2.5 to graduate or a 2.3 to graduate. If they meet the standards of acceptance and can maintain what it is, why deny them? You know what I mean? So, again, these are the kind of stuff that we are pushing for. We have seen in terms of the educational assistance that we're offering people in terms of visas and everything else. And there's a reason, again, I said broad outcome number one is education for this government, because we do recognize that, again, it's one of the best investments you can ever make in your people. And the question has always been this, and I'll explain to you why it is number one as opposed to healthcare being number two, is the question has been, recognizing a country needs a healthy and educated population. Which one do you invest in when resources are limited? And the answer is education. Because if you give the people education, they'll at least have enough sense or to know to take care of themselves, to watch their health. As opposed to you can have healthy people, and if they're not going to education, it's a whole different story. Mm-hmm. So this is why we have made that investment, but also recognizing that healthcare is something very easy. Like I said, for my colleagues, it's very easy when we meet to caucus on Mondays. We focus on the things that keep families awake at night. It's the blueprint for us. What is it? At the same time, recognize where the premiers ask us to say, think of how this decision is going to be in the next 10 years. So things that traditional people see as an expense before, this government sees as investment. We want to make the investment now. Are we in the financial position that we'd like to be in? No. Do we have the previous $160 million surplus that the last government had? No. We came in, it was supposed to be a massive deficit. We reduced the deficit significantly. This year we're supposed to be forecast to have a deficit. We actually have a small surplus this year. And up to the June 30th, we're still maintaining our surplus position. So we're trying our best to make sure we keep government finances in a position where we can help our people. That's the reason we can do some of the stuff we have. This free school lunch may cost the government $60 million, but it is saving Cayman families $25 million. The electricity assistance program may be costing the government $5-6 million over the summer. But what it is putting back in terms of in the local economy and putting back in the families, that is the kind of things that allows them to do more for the children, as opposed to, if you pay CUC, you can't feed yourself or that kind of stuff. So there are issues that is serious that we are taking seriously, because it's really and truly about making people's lives better. That's really what it is about. And I can say that I intend to come back, so I don't need to drag this out. But the one thing I want people to know is that my colleagues and I were working very hard. Do we argue? Yes, as we should. Democracy was never about being nice. It was always about, you have disagreements, you have division, you have discord, you have dissent. But it says, you have debate, you have dialogue, you have discussion, you have diatribe, you find consensus, you find compromise. That's what it has always been about. It is still an issue of ideas. Every one of us have ideas, every one of us have priorities, but one thing we all agree on is that it is what is best for the Cayman people in the long run, and that's what we're focused on. So we may not get there overnight. We're going to have false starts, we're going to have missteps. Mm-hmm. Nobody's perfect. But what I can say to you, OC, as sure as I know that the sun will rise tomorrow, that our best days are still ahead of us. And the things that are wrong with Cayman can still be fixed by the things that are right with Cayman. This is still one of the best places to live and work. And I'm going to make sure that before the end of this term for this government, and hopefully other terms, is that the Cayman people will recognize, we're working to make their lives better. And that's all we can ask, to give us patience, give us the time. But more importantly, when the surveys do come out, please be as honest, because we need information, because we need it to make informed decisions. Mm-hmm. Also, I want to thank you. I want to thank the Chief Officer and Financial Secretary, Mr. Jefferson, and Director Laidlaw, and the team, and others who have really made this possible. Okay. And, I'm more than happy to come back. And as I said, this is my favorite show. You guys helped launch my political career. I got a special place for you and Mr. Steve. Many Fridays we stood here, and I really appreciate it. I just want to thank you, listening public, again. Thanks for having us.
Certainly, and thanks for being here as well, folks. Have a great day. Remember to join Sterling Drainey Banks at 12:15 for Talk today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Coca-Cola, available across the Cayman Islands from Tortuga distributors. Accept no substitutes. Taste the feeling with Coca-Cola. Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. West Bay Pharmacy, taking care of your health. And JN Money.
From abroad to yard.
Fast, affordable, convenient. Doctors Hospital. Peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital. Always there for you. Call 949-6066.
Follow Radio Cayman on Twitter. All the latest information, breaking news, community events, and more. Follow us at twitter.com/Radio